first off, thanks for coming to this year's College Symposium. Some of you have seen some of the ones we've done in the past. It's been more of a PowerPoint kind of program, a few questions and answers. And this year, we decided to do something a little differently. So first off, thanks to Greg Petty and Kevin Control for putting this together. They have put in hours and hours and hours of work. And thanks, guys, for putting it together. So this year, we decided to do something a little differently. We brought in college coaches from different institutions that have different advantages, different levels of aid or non-aid, different opportunities academically, and there'll be questions that are moderated questions for the coaches that you'll be able to hear the differences in what they do. So we're not going to have any questions from the crowd, sorry. Please don't try to come up here and get a bubble gum. So at this point, we're going to start off our program pretty quickly by recognizing the 2018 signees here at the club. And then we're going to go into our moderated program. At the end of it, the Alliance staff will be available to talk if you do have questions. We're going to try to make this available online for you guys, so if you want to go back and look at it again, I'm sure the highlight will be the introduction from me, but if you want to go back and look at it, go right ahead. So with that, Greg, if you want to introduce the 2018 class.
Right. Thank you, Mike. I too would echo Mike's comments because I may have been at a lot of meetings, but you guys had even more meetings. Greg Petty and Kevin Contrell put in hundreds of hours, and I think tens, being black bashful. But we really appreciate what they've done, and thank you all for coming, and thank you very much for coming to the College Coach panel. Without further ado, I want to introduce the girls commits that are here, starting with Alex Clare, Allegheny College. Alexa Harris, Thomas More College. Anna Smith, Hanover College. Unable to make it today due to work, Autumn Boothby, Hanover College. Also unable to make it today, she had several soccer offers and decided to go to the University of Tennessee for an academic package, Bryce Grisham. Bryn Rolfson, Hanover College. Well, I shouldn't jump the gun. I mean, Ohio Wesleyan's still in the running, but that Jim will keep.
I thought maybe she had something she would tell me.
Yeah, we haven't gotten there. We haven't gotten there yet. All right. Katie Hatfield, Mount St. Joseph. Unable to make it today due to work obligations, Chloe Smith, Tennessee Tech University. Unable to make it today due to a play rehearsal at St. Ursula. Corinne Stanford, who had multiple opportunities, but has gotten a really nice package from Harvard University to go there on an academic package. So, Corinne Stanford, Harvard University. Holly Barlich, Capital University. to make it today due to work. And again, another girl who is taking an academic package, even though she had some other opportunities. Isabel Dancer, University of Tennessee. Jessica Morgan, Malone University. Kaylee Strauss, Cumberland University. Kylie Long, Spring Hill College. Next we have Kelsey Candle, who's unable to make it today due to work obligations, University of Southern Indiana. Same with work obligations, Lucy Roberts, Sacred Heart University. And another girl with work obligations, Mackenzie Candle, University of Indianapolis. We're very proud of our 2018 class. Congratulations. Got a few more here. You're up. Maggie Ohmer, Ohio Northern. Maggie Melman, Ohio Dominican. And yesterday, Maggie scored her 1,000th point in basketball, so congratulations on that. Taylor Gephardt, Center College. Now we've reached the end of the list. Okay. Congratulations to all of you. Thank you very much. Great job. Okay, next, we have a great panel of college coaches from a diverse set of universities, colleges that have found a lot of time in their schedule to come here, which we greatly appreciate on a weekend. They don't get much time. They spend a lot of time on the road, and their responsibilities are numerous. So we really appreciate all of you guys finding time to come out today. What we're going to do is we're going to introduce each of the coaches, and if you all say a couple words about your program, something that would help everyone to know a little something about your program, that would be great. It might help to let them know what level what division you're in, etc. So we'll start with James Watts, Hanover College.
Hi, I'm Jim Watts. I'm the women's coach at Hanover College. We are a Division III unit college. We're a small liberal arts college of about 1,200 students. Our campus is about 700 acres and sits on a bluff overlooking the Ohio River. It's absolutely gorgeous. And we're about an hour and 45 minutes due south of UC Clermont. If you shoot down 71, you hop off in Carrollton, Kentucky, and you're 15 minutes from Hanover. A lot of our players major in the sciences, business, education, other majors in humanities. A lot of kids that want to be doctors, lawyers, go to physical therapy school, med school, things like that.
Thank you, Jim. Shane Meridith, Indiana University East.
Hi, Shane Meridith. I am a proud Cincinnatian, although the other side of Cincinnati than we are here. I am in my first year, full year at Indiana University East, because we are a brand new program competing at the NAIA level, and we, being affiliated with Indiana University, offer quite a broad range of academic majors. Unlike some other affiliate campuses, we have players that are from Puerto Rico, California, Idaho, Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana. So we have branched out real quickly throughout the country. So thank you for having us.
Bob Sheehan, Northern Kentucky University.
Hi, the program was founded in 1997. The first 15 years played Division II, and about 6 years ago the university moved to Division I. A lot of our majors are a lot of nursing, exercise science, physical therapy. That seems to be the hot majors for a lot of members of our team. We're in Highland Heights, Kentucky, just across the river from Cincinnati. Thank you.
Blaine, Callahan, UC Clermont Women.
So I'm the women's coach here at the University of Cincinnati, Clermont. Our campus here sits on about 42 acres. We offer 90 programs here, plus we offer the first 2 years of every program we have at main campus of University of Cincinnati. We play in the USCAA, which used to be called the United States Small College Association. We have about 3,000 students. We play a variety of opponents. Typically our opponents are NCAA Division III or NAIA opponents, with some Division II sprinkled in. Our biggest programs, we have a PTA program here, which is one of the most competitive in the nation. We also have the first 2 years of our nursing program here, with transfers direct and UC Maine. So.
Pete Ohmer, UC Clermont Men.
One thing that's interesting about our program is we're a branch of the University of Cincinnati, so a lot of people think you can only play 2 years here. You can actually play 4 years for us. One of the big points that we like to make is at the end of your academic career, you have a University of Cincinnati degree, not just, it doesn't say UC Clermont or anything like that, it's University of Cincinnati. Both men's and women's are getting ready to start their 4th season in the fall.
Kristin Cannon, Xavier University Women.
So we compete in NCAA Division I in the Big East Conference. We're a school of about 4,500 undergrads, about 3,500 grad students and pre-med students. Norwood section of Cincinnati, about a 10-minute drive to downtown. And I've been there for about 3.5 weeks, so brand spanking new. But this is my second go around in Cincinnati. I was at UC a couple years ago, so happy to be back in the Midwest, this New England kid.
Joel, Carey, Cincinnati State men's and women's programs.
So I've been with the women's program for about 5 years. Just recently, in the last 3 weeks, took over with the men's program as well. Interesting stuff with Cincinnati State is we have over 70 programs ranging from associate's degrees to certificates. We have many agreements with many of the local colleges around here, ranging from scholarship opportunities once you complete your two-year degree with us, transfer on, ranging from anywhere from $6,000 to $17,000 as a transfer scholarship for each year that you attend for the moving on to your next school, like Mount St. Joe, where we are able to give now, depending on what your GPA is, $17,000 transferring from us to Mount St. Joe. The women's side program, the year before went 15-4. They were ranked 19th in the nation. The year before that, they were ranked 17th in the nation. And for the last 4 years, they have been the regional finalists in the tournament. The men's program has made it to the national finals 3 or 4 times. They are constantly ranked within the top 10, top 5 in the nation in their program. So we've got a great pedigree, and we've become a great farm school for a lot of the 4-year schools moving on. Another interesting thing with Cincinnati State, as we're continuing to evolve, we are now starting to offer 4-year degrees. We've already had an agreement with Ohio University where you could get your 4-year degree without ever having to attend. Now we are going to start hosting even more on campus.
Awesome. Josh Hess, Mount St. Joseph University.
Okay, so hi, my name is Josh Hess. I'm from Mount St. Joseph University. We are located on the west side of Cincinnati, about 35 minutes from here, depending on traffic. I've been there about 5 years, and the program itself has done better and better since I've been there. And the school itself has grown a little bit. We're at about 1,500 students right now. We're on pace to kind of continue to grow a little bit for the next 4 or 5 years. Our big majors, if you're looking at those, if you're interested in those things, are nursing, PT, business, education, and then pretty much just runs the gamut for pre-professional programs. If you want to go to dentistry school or law school, those things, we have all of those as well. So,
Steve Moore, Indiana University East, men's.
Steve Moore, similar to what Shane said, we're in our very first year as a college soccer program. Pretty unique situation to have been able to recruit every single guy that's in our program right now. 4,500 students. We're located pretty much right between Dayton and Indianapolis. So location-wise, a lot of things easy that make it easy to get around to. Had a great kickoff campaign. Ended up losing our conference semifinal in just of our first year. So a lot of potential. We're one of not very many state universities within the NAIA, which makes it, from an affordability standpoint, a pretty good option just from a cost standpoint.
You guys hang on to the microphone and just pass it. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to get into our Q&A. What we've tried to do is put together some questions that will help you to understand the differences between the different NCAA, NAIA, and JUCO divisions, as well as some of the things that you should be considering as you look to potentially become a college soccer player. So you guys just pass that microphone around. We don't need everybody to answer each question, so you don't feel like you have to, but if you can, great. All right. For this, what we need is from a couple of guys. What is the life of a college player throughout the year at the different levels? So, Joel, you.
For us, we're a 2-year school. We're a junior college. So we start our season officially August 1st. I'll meet with the majority of the players right before June, give them their summer packet. They'll bust their butt over the summer, hopefully working hard on their packet. August 1st, they'll come in. We'll start 2-a-days for the next 3 weeks within the program. Usually then after that, we'll have a few preseason games about the 3rd week in August, and then right at Labor Day or right after Labor Day weekend is when we kick off our season. We'll usually wrap it up at the end of October or November, depending on how far we go into the tournament. A few week break from that, and then they'll start strength and conditioning training. in the winter, and then a small spring schedule, and then we start the cycle over. As far as what an actual day will look like, depending on whether we're starting in the morning or if we're training in the afternoon, they will be out of practice at 6 a.m. If it's in the morning, go till 8. They will start their classes at 9. They'll have lifting about 2 times a week, so they'll have to fit that in sometime in their schedule. And then if we have a practice in the afternoon, they'll go to class from 8 till about 2. They'll have practice at 3, and we'll do that 5 to 6 days a week, plus 10 games on our weekend.
In terms of, Joel, stay with you for a second. In terms of the division that you all are playing in, what kind of financial aid or scholarships are available, and how does that work?
So once again, we're in the NJCA. We were 2 years ago Division I, so we were able to, at that point, give athletic scholarship. We are now Division III, so that means we can no longer give actual financial aid for athletics. But the positive part with Cincinnati State is the most I've ever seen our tuition be for a year is $5,000 a year, including books. The average tuition usually stays right around $3,500 right around that area for tuition and books. We do have an honors program, so if you have a 3.25 GPA in high school and score a 26 on your ACT, you will then be in our honors program, which is full basic tuition and books covered. As far as other scholarships, we have so many scholarships that next to Cincinnati State, you just go one place, you click on it, you register for that link, it will then cycle through 200 to 400 different scholarships that you might be available for. So we are a very, very affordable college. We're one of the lowest in the state of Ohio. We just had a player who played for us for 2 years moving on, and by the time she graduates with her 4-year degree, she would have only paid $2,500 to $3,000 for a total of a 4-year degree.
And lastly, before we move on, you have affiliations with, I know a lot of people don't understand this, but you have affiliations with multiple universities, some of who are on the panel.
Yeah. Just to name a few, we have agreements with NKU, Miami, Mount St. Joe, IUPUI, Ohio University, UC, Findlay. The list is about 15 to 20 colleges. You can find it on our Cincinnati State website underneath agreements, and you can read the full list and see what we have to offer. As far as once you get a 2-year degree with us and moving on, we do have nice agreements and financials. I mean, for me alone, I graduated from Cincinnati State, went to UC, I got a $22,000 academic scholarship just moving on because I went to Cincinnati State.
Well, Kristin, if you would take the same set of questions, I know your experience, you were at UC and then LIU Brooklyn, and Xavier, if you wouldn't mind kind of maybe comparing, start with Xavier and then maybe compare to some of your other experiences.
Sure, just in terms of the season looks like?
Yeah, what the off-season, preseason, season.
Sure, so with Division I, we typically move in August 1st, have about 2 weeks of preseason before we get into non-conference scheduling, play our season through hopefully early December, which means we're national champions. We're working on that. Then from there, our students go home. They have final exams, go home for the winter break. When they come back, we get to work with them right away. We're in 8 hours, so the NCAA tells us that we get 8 hours with them till actually tomorrow. So that means that 2 hours, that's it. That's all we get for soccer-specific training. The other 6 hours is strength and conditioning. And then starting tomorrow, we get 20 hours a week through the rest of the spring up until they have the week before finals. So pretty much all-encompassing. Spring for us is more of another fall season. Obviously, minimal travel. We get 5 competition dates, so we play 5 different games throughout that time frame. So it's still pretty intense in terms of time commitment, but we like to do a good job of balancing. We recognize the importance of our student athletes having a balance in their lives as hard as it can be. So we want to provide them an experience where they get the full college experience in that spring as well. Some of them still work jobs. They can go to basketball games, hang out, enjoy themselves a little bit. So obviously the numbers are a bit different in the spring. We have people graduating, so it's usually smaller numbers. Right now, healthy, we have about 13, 14 in the spring. So in a way, that's really great because it kind of switches up the training environment for us and for them. It's a bit more lighthearted. We're not preparing necessarily for games. It's more just individual work, teamwork, and just kind of knocking the rust off and getting fit. So that for us is really important. throughout that, we work with our strength and conditioning coaches. So we have one in particular that works with our student athletes every day, prepares their conditioning, their fitness, and to help them perform what we need them to perform. So that piece is fantastic for us. What are the other parts of the question? What am I forgetting?
Well, how is that different, or is it different from, for example, when you were at UC or LIU Brooklyn?
In terms of the actual season, it's all similar because we're under the same rules, the same umbrella for the NCAA. Every institution is really different depending on what kind of resources you have. So for a large school like UC, for example, you have everything at your fingertips, anything you possibly want. Smaller schools like LA Brooklyn, where I just was, you're a bit more strapped for resources, so us as coaches become a bit more creative in what we can do, and we wear a few more hats than at the larger schools. So I think that's a little different. I've also had the opportunity to work. I played Division II, and I've also coached Division II and Division III at small and big schools. So every place is so different. At the end of the day, for you all choosing a school, you just want to make sure you're finding the right fit and what fits in your lifestyle. If you want an environment where you're playing, because you're used to probably playing year-round with club, right? So if you want that kind of environment where it's really structured like that, Division I and II, and everyone else can speak to that as well, would be a good bet. Division III gives you a bit more options in the spring for study abroad and other environments like that. So it depends on where you're going. Yeah.
And before we move down, I'm going to ask the others the same question. When kids start thinking about college soccer, when do you suggest that they make their first contact, and how should they go about doing that? Because I know that a lot of people don't necessarily know the rules, the protocol.
Sure, so I'll speak specifically to Xavier now. My opinion is that recruiting is starting way too early. I think it's insane how the young people that we're talking to, the fact that we have 8th graders coming out of campus and speaking to college coaches and hanging out with college players, I think is ludicrous. But it is what it is at this point. So, that first contact for us right now is often happening in 8th grade, which to me I usually say go enjoy junior high school. But at the same time, that's kind of where it is. If you want to play at certain levels at certain schools, that's often when that first contact happens. Now, having said that, we are a school that we really value also being a little bit late in the process, so we make sure that we kind of save money or save space on our roster for those who maybe, for whatever reason, whether they've kind of fell through the cracks or they weren't quite sure where they wanted to go, we always have, not always have, I shouldn't use absolutes, but typically have room for players who are a bit older, whether that's juniors or seniors, that might be the right fit. So in that way, for us, we do that. But yeah, early contact, and again, that's important for what school you're going to and what division, but for us, 8th, 9th, 10th grade, we're currently still kind of working on our 2019 classes, but 2020 and 2021s are in full swing already for us.
And then in terms of your response contact, just elaborate a little bit on how that evolves, as they get closer to graduation from high school.
Yeah, so for us, it's just all about that communication. So that after that initial contact, making sure that you're always staying communicative with us. It can't all be from us. We want to hear that you're interested and that you're actually valuing what we're doing. We don't want to get that wholesale email that just says, "Hey, coach, come watch me play," and has nothing about our school. We want to know that you're actually invested in learning more about Xavier, because we're investing a lot to come see you play as well. So it's going to be a two-way street. From there, we just see you play and keep that communication going, evaluate you, give you feedback. We can't speak to you until you're really going into your junior year, so that earlier section of communication is usually facilitated through your club coach. I should say we can speak to you, but you have to call us, and we have to pick up the phone. We can't call you until you're a bit older, so that kind of puts a little wrinkle in things as well. But for us, just the communication piece, building relationships is really important to us, so the more we can communicate, the better.
Thank you. We'll stay with Division I right now. Bob, if you wouldn't mind talking about player contact, both from them to you and the response and what you can and can't do, that'd be great.
Yeah, so currently it's July 1st of your junior year September 1st is a telephone call that a coach can call someone. There's really important legislation that's going to be voted on in April. I think all the coaches agree this has gotten way too early. I think it's terrible when you look at parents and young ladies in the eye and they're trying to make decisions when they're honestly probably way too young to make those decisions. So the new legislation that's going to be voted on is September 1st of junior year for unofficial visit. An unofficial visit means that you pay, you travel to the campus at your expense. An official visit is when the institution pays. and it's going to be, they're talking about September 1st for both of those visits to begin of your junior year. This would also mean no recruiting conversations at all, not at ID camps or otherwise, until September 1st of the junior year. And I think that people think that's really important, in particular on the female side, because the recruiting's gotten earlier and earlier and earlier.
Yeah, I mean, the New York Times had that article 2 years ago, and I think Kristin just touched on this. I know all of you guys agree. I mean, we have a 14-year-old 8th grader. You know, they were talking about committing to the University of Texas as an 8th grader at the age of 14. If I'm a college coach, I don't want my career depending on the word of a 14-year-old for 5 years from now. So I think that's the right idea. While we're on, Bob, while we're talking about it, the ID camps, I know we're going to have some of you guys talk about ID camps. How do ID camps fit into your recruiting philosophy and how you do things at Northern Kentucky University?
So, you know, we've had them in the past. We try to keep them small. I think if you get too large, I think it just can be kind of overwhelming. I think the cost, the camps can become a moneymaker for coaches, and again, that's people are trying to make a living, and certainly everyone understands that. But I do think you probably want to look at the size of the ID camp and figure out if in fact you're going to get exposed, and even our players being recruited out of those ID camps. And I think that's information that coaches would be more than willing to share with you. I think those are probably two important things.
Okay. Jim, would you mind talking about not only the contact back and forth, but also if you'd elaborate on how you do things in terms of ID camps?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm kind of like a politician. Sometimes I answer the question I want to answer, not the one that was asked. And this is related to the communication. When I heard Greg ask about, you know, how do you contact a coach, how do you get noticed, how do you get recruited, you know, the first thing that comes to my mind are all the terrible emails I have started to receive for the tournaments coming up this weekend. Okay, and what I mean by that, Ohio Elite, Galaxy Showcase, I think are both next weekend. I think Circle City Showcase is next weekend in Indianapolis. Okay, so that's 3 pretty sizable tournaments just in this immediate region. I'm a D3 coach. I've received dozens of emails about those 3 showcase tournaments. I can't imagine how many emails Xavier in Northern Kentucky will receive for those tournaments. Coaches have to make sort of value judgments about how they're going to spend their time. And if you send, at least the coach at Hanover College, an email that says, you know, dear coach, I'm interested in your university, that's a pretty clear indication to me that you probably copied and pasted the same email to 78 coaches that are going to be at Galaxies that weekend. Okay? I would urge you to take the time, do the extra work, and as often as possible to communicate sincerely and genuinely with the colleges and universities that you're interested in. Okay? So, you know, if you're writing for the weekend, hey, Coach Watts, you know, I'm interested in biology. You know, maybe I'm an egomaniac. Congrats on your good season. Tell me things that are going to show me that you're actually interested in Hanover, not just emailing 78 coaches for the weekend. Maybe tell me your grandfather's an alum. Okay. Maybe say, hey, I'm a goalkeeper, and I see you'll have, you know, 2 goalkeepers graduating in the next 2 years. Things like that will get my attention. Tell me what number you are. Tell me where you're going to play on the field. If you're a goalkeeper, tell me what half you're going to play. Send me the field number and time of your game. If it gets changed, maybe update me on that. Just all the things, the small things that you can do to get a coach's attention, I guarantee you will pay off because people will turn up and see it play. Okay? If you're one of the 58 people that email me and just, it looks like a generic email, it goes to the bottom of the pile, and honestly, I may not get out and see it play that weekend. So I hope that was okay to share. And then in terms of ID camps, I think they can be really great, but you don't have to go to 52 ID camps as a teenager to get recruited. I think they can be really beneficial if you sort of focus in on 3 or 4 places maybe that you're really interested in, and then maybe go visit those campuses and go to ID camp, okay? They're all different, like Coach said, sometimes they're really big, sometimes the head coaches run the sessions, sometimes the head coaches sit in the press box and hire other coaches to run the day. I think the best thing about ID camps, quite frankly, coaches get a chance to evaluate you, but from my perspective, when we have ID camps in Hanover, I think the best thing about them is the campers get a chance to evaluate me, my staff, interact with my players, see how I interact with my players, and get sort of a feel for our program. So I think they can be really beneficial in the right setting.
When do you think a player should be looking, or at least start thinking about playing college soccer?
Oh man, I agree with everything the Division I coaches said about it being insane how early some players make decisions and commitments. But I think it is important to at least start thinking about your college search early in your high school career. I only speak to what we do, but in the spring of your sophomore year, that's when we're going to start maybe identifying a pool of players that we're going to recruit down the road. Commitments are quite a bit later at my level. Really, usually, an early commitment for us would be somebody committing in the spring of their junior year, and anymore we'll get 2, 3, 4 of those for a given class. But the junior year is really where we kind of start to get serious with kids and really pick up the recruiting.
Thanks. Let's move on to Shane. Shane, how do you feel about ID camps and what kind of procedure do you follow in terms of contacts with players, and what do you recommend they do in reaching out to you?
So the ID camps, as you start to narrow down your search, a great thing for you to do is to identify possible fits for your program, or for you and what you want to do academically. And invest money in going to their ID camps and all that. It also, I think, is really helpful. I work a number of ID camps throughout this area, larger schools, that type of thing. Because if you're not a good fit at Northern Kentucky, and I'm working Bob's camps, maybe all of a sudden you're a good fit for me and I have scholarship money for you. Or we're working at IU or wherever. And so it's a small community of coaches. I've worked with coaches on this panel. We share information. We say, hey, this player might be good for you. They're not a fit for us because of academics, or I don't have any more money, or whatever. So I do think there is some real value in ID camps and going and testing the waters there. I'd be awful careful too about ID camps that are 250 people that are at, and only the staff are coaching there, because that is probably a hint that the assistant coach is getting a little bit extra pay there. So that's kind of how I feel on ID camps. It's not a necessity. It can be a tool for you to find a good home.
Shane, staying with you, we talked about this with some of the coaches earlier. What is a player at Indiana University East looking to do off-season, preseason, and their season? What does that look like in terms of their commitment?
Every school is very different, and one of my few strengths in life is that I have coached at the Division III level. I have been assistant coach at 4 Division I schools, including one in the Big Ten, and now my first run at the NAIA. And we all are competitive folks. Division III, NAIA, Division II, Division I. And we want folks that want to challenge themselves to get better in the classroom, but also on the field. And so I just asked Jim, what are your players doing right now? And he's not allowed to have direct contact, I think he said, just right yet, but they're doing strength and conditioning. if they're sitting on their couch eating bonbons right now because he can't have direct contact, they're not going to fit into his program and what his program is accomplishing, what he wants. And so, you know, some of the D1s that I was at, we were training 4 days a week in the bulk of the spring with heavy lifting in there in the 20 hours a week. Others, we were only going 3 times a week. And so it all differs, and those are things you're going to want to ask the coach when you're on a visit. But I can tell you, just because it's Division III or you're not on scholarship, the expectation is for you to get a degree, for you to get better yourself as a student athlete, and we get paid to coach soccer, and so we expect you to grow as a player within our programs.
Bob, can you elaborate with NKU, the off-season, preseason, during the season time commitments? And also, I know we've talked about this, you have a lot of nursing students, for example, which is a pretty challenging with the labs and everything. How do the girls, how do they juggle all that?
Well, it's pretty similar to what Kristin said. The time commitment is one of the things. When we went from D2 to D1, we did learn that. And as a D2 institution, we talked about life and the balance as a student athlete. And we had a lot of nursing majors, and one of the things we wanted to keep when we moved to Division I is we wanted to keep that balance. And we want to be as successful as we can athletically, but certainly academically as well. So, you know, the players do a great job of working with their professors, working with the people who assign the clinicals. Frankly, the coaches are somewhat flexible. In the spring, certainly, if somebody has to be a little late or miss or whatever, and again, I think across the board you'll find as you do your research that coaches are going to work with you because academics are extremely important in Division I. There's something called the APR, the academic progress rate. Right now it doesn't mean that. It means a little bit, but it's going to mean money. And next year it's going to be, I think, $41,000 per institution, and then in 4 years it's going to be up to $500,000 per institution if they meet these graduation rates and academic progress rates and so forth. So certainly women's soccer academics are really, really important, and they play a huge piece. And I think you'll find most coaches are flexible in that regard.
Good. All right, moving on, Blaine and Pete. Blaine, I know, for example, you just got back from Puerto Rico. You were down there looking at some potential players. Why don't you and Pete talk about contact with players, how they contact with you, vice versa, how widespread you're looking at players, and then finally, what kind of academic or financial aid scholarships can you all provide in the UC Clermont realm?
Yeah, and we're pretty similar to everyone else. We don't have the regulations that the Division I teams have, but we try to keep it practical. I'm not recruiting 8th graders. I'm not recruiting freshmen. I may make some note of some sophomores. Typically, their junior years when we get pretty serious, and we're looking for commitments. February of their senior year typically. As far as our recruiting, this going into our 4th season next year, my geographic recruiting net has kind of opened up a little bit. As you can see here at our university, we do not have dorm rooms here. We're a commuter college, so at some point during the night, we shut the doors, kick everybody out. They have to sleep at home. We found ways to house some students here on campus. Some of our students will go live in the dorms at main campus and take a few classes at main campus, take a few classes here. We also have what is now an athletic house, which houses about 12 girls. It's a couple miles away from here. It's actually pretty unique. It's got 4 bedrooms on one side and 3 on the other, and inside the middle of the house is a 60 by 30 indoor soccer field. So it's kind of unique. I don't think anybody else can offer that. So with that, we've got a couple of students from Puerto Rico coming. We've got one coming from a little bit north of Chicago, But predominantly, they're right around here in Cincinnati, coming from clubs like Alliance, Cup, Ohio United, where I'm the director at, and a few other things. So, as far as academic money, or any money, it all starts with your academics. It all starts with your GPA and your ACT, and I think I can pretty much say that goes for almost anybody here. We do offer a small athletic grant. It's about 20%, and that's associated with a very minimal academic requirement of a 2.0 and a 20 in your ACT. We also offer some other things in the form of a merit scholarship. It's up to $2,500 or 50% of your of your tuition. And then we do offer some other things. We have some donor-based scholarships, about $2 million worth of scholarships for the 3,000 students around here that we can also offer as well. I would say typically our average student may pay close to $2,500 a year, depending on what your package looks like. Sometimes we do better, sometimes we do worse. It just all depends on the package. I could say that there's a direct correlation between good students and good soccer players, at least here at the University of Cincinnati. That's what I've learned in the last 3 years. My first year here, I think we went 1-9. Our GPA was right around a 2.3. My second year, we went about 500. My GPA snuck up a little bit to about a 2.7. This year, it was up over a 3.5. We went 10-5-1, made the national tournament, finished 8th in the country. And I think there's a direct correlation. Recruit good students are going to work in the classroom, and they're going to work hard for you on the field. So.
Thank you, Pete. Want to elaborate? Is he letting you use that field in the house there for the guys program? Yeah.
We've talked about that.
All right.
One thing I will tell you is that on the guys' side, it's a lot different recruiting-wise. I've noticed like Blaine's athletes, he's looking at players, and it seems like they have a general idea of where they want to go early on in their academic career. Well, I'm still recruiting right now for next season. I've talked to multiple players. They're still undecided, and that's okay. And in my opinion, I think there's a place, if you want to play in college, there's a place for you to play college soccer. The only thing I recommend is don't pick a school off of just because, hey, they've got a soccer program and I can play there. So, in your search, you want to look at the whole package, because the goal is to get a degree, but it's also to complete your degree at that school and not transfer. So that's my biggest thing, is I think every school has a different recruiting process. Everyone has a different, even like Blaine and I, we recruit a little bit differently. Just because the guys are a little bit, still undecided, where I think a lot of, his players are, they've decided a long time ago that this is the career path they want to go. So, it's okay if you don't know right now. But, I would start as, if you're here, obviously you're interested. And then also, if you're playing club soccer, you want to go towards this direction. Like Greg said earlier in the meeting, some players decide at the last minute, hey, I'm not going to play anymore. I'm going to pick this academic route. So, not many people talk about that, but there's also club teams who can continue playing. But we look at everybody. There's, like I said, there's a place for you to play. But to answer Greg's question a little bit about our day, so we're a little bit more relaxed as far as requirements. Off season, in season, who we play. I schedule with Division III a lot, NAI a lot. This spring we're going to have a spring season. I'm going to play against NKU. We're going to play Midway. I'm also going to play NKU's club team. So, there's a variety of teams that I can play. So right now, during the winter, we have futsal that we play. The men's team trains, weight training plus futsal, and then we also do something that's a little bit more fun. We'll combine the men's and women's team. We're doing it tonight, so we'll play futsal, and they just enjoy it. It's something that they can enjoy. So we'll have a small spring season. But fall's our main season, and like most other programs, we do our main day is August 1st. That's the first mandatory training. Then we hit that in. We'll have a couple spring games, and then usually we'll go until the end of October. And so that's then usually the holidays, they're always off all the holidays, and then, UC has a long winter break. So then when they come back from winter break, I think we got them the first week that they came back, and we started doing stuff again. And we're in contact with our players the whole time, constantly talking to them, and making sure that they're making the right decisions. A lot of them do work here as well. So the main goal is that they have to be able to play for us. You have to stay full-time student for spring and fall. And a lot of parents are like, well, let's just take off a little bit. But you have to have so many credits that come in. So
Is that still at least 12
Yes.
credit hours?
right. So full-time for us is 12 credit hours in the fall, 12 credit hours in the spring. And you have to be passing all those classes to come in. So say, for example, I'm an incoming freshman, your requirements to get in are through your high school. So then when you start at UC Clermont, you have to take 12 credit hours in the fall, 12 credit hours in the spring, and then have passed those 12 credit hours to be able to come in your sophomore season.
All right, well, I want to get down to Josh and Steve here and get a little feedback on some of those topics. At Indiana University East Men's program, for example, how do these things relate to your program?
Sure, I'd echo what Pete said in that I'm hearing all these women's coaches say how fast forward the progress is I still got 9 spots that I got to fill for this coming year's recruiting class to start this fall. If I get an email from a 2019 kid right now, my standard response is, hey, keep me up to date, let me know, where you're going to be, we'll try and get out to you. But right now I'm stuck right in the middle of my 2018 recruiting class. So it's just not that far forward. As far as what you can expect, hey, off season, and in some ways I hate the term off season because you're going to work during the off season. You're not going to play as many games, but you're going to work. Right now we're doing 4 days a week where we're just conditioning and weightlifting. Our facility, being a brand new program, we still got some kinks and things that are getting worked through, specifically with regards to facilities. So right now, what the guys are doing, it ain't no fun. They're waking up, they got workouts at 7:30, 8:30. We had 2 groups that go back to back 4 days a week. Even when we do get a facility, hey, we'll be training, we'll be playing to be more fun, but we only have 3 dates where we play actual games. So we started back up, I think, January 10th for school. They went for about a week, just kind of getting back into the swing of things, and then we jumped right into it. And we're training, whether it's weight training, whether it's playing, until the middle of April. So it's, I think that, Nicole, right? Kristin, yeah, sorry. We basically go all spring, and the travel is a lot less. We only have 3 dates. The NAI says that we gotta play when we do play on the weekends. So I think we're going to go up to Fort Wayne twice for 2 different dates where we play one at home. So the travel's a lot less, but hey, you're putting in a lot of time still. I know a couple people said, hey, we've got required study tables. Hey, we want you to be successful. We want you to, as much as we want you to come, we want you to get out of here in 4 years too. And doing well academically is going to get you there. So depending on all of our freshmen that come in, we have a set requirement, regardless of whether you're coming in as a national merit semifinalist or whether you're coming in barely scraping in as eligible. You got the baseline study hall requirements. Now after a semester, we kind of reevaluate. If you've done really well for us, hey, you don't have to come to the study table. You've got it, you figured it out, you're doing well. Keep doing that. For kids that didn't do so well, hey, we're going to range somewhere between 4 and 8 hours of study hall that you got to do every given week. If you don't make it, you're going to have any less fun next week. But like I said, we're training 4 or 5 days a week. Once we do get outside, once our facility stuff gets going, we may be going 5 or 6 times a week. Like I say, we're balancing. Hey, it's still a lot of time, but we want you to be successful. We want you to have a life. But hey, you're here for a reason. There's scholarship money attached to basically all of the guys that are on our team, and so there's an expectation that's And most of the guys, and this I guess kind of goes back to the recruiting process, we want guys that want to be better and want to be out on the field and want to be doing those workouts, that it's not a chore. It's something that they expect, because we know that, hey, if we're going to be as successful as we want to be, we got to put in a lot of time. Shane maybe said, hey, if you're sitting on the couch eating bonbons, you may want to reevaluate how serious you are, because we're pretty serious. We want the kids to be successful, but we want to be awfully good on the field too. And that doesn't happen for a lot of programs, but a lot of programs don't do a lot of things as well. So
I know, Steve, at different schools, they have either study table or some requirements. You mentioned that. Is that supervised? Is there assistance available to the students, or are they just basically in a room and you're having them put in
sure.
the time?
So at least for IU East, we've got a study hall log, and the students will come in and they'll log in, and there's a monitor. Monitor's not necessarily affiliated with the soccer program. They're hired out by I think our student success program is who hires that person, and they're monitoring that basically study hall. And unfortunately we're finding out about it maybe on the wrong side for a couple of kids, but they're there to do a job. They're not just to clock in and they don't do anything. That person will do rounds. The person comes in and signs in, and they go into the library to do their study, and that monitor will walk through the library and make sure that person's still there, that they didn't just check in and check out and they come in 2 hours later to sign out and they haven't done anything. They're doing a job. And I want that because I want my kids that are doing study hall for a reason, because we want them to be successful academically. They need the studying to do it. We'll do, particularly during the fall, we play for our conference, we play Thursday, Saturday games, so there's times where we'll leave Thursday morning, we'll play Thursday night, we'll stay overnight, we'll be someplace all Friday, we'll be somewhere all Saturday, we'll play Saturday night, and then we'll come back. So, hey, that's a long weekend, and we'll set up blocks of time, maybe on Friday, maybe Saturday morning, where, hey, now I'm monitoring, or my assistant is monitoring a study hall session, knowing that, hey, we just missed 2 days of class. You're gonna have stuff that you're gonna have to do to keep up with the work that you missed while we were gone. So we'll have a monitored study hall while we're doing that too.
All right, last for you, and I changed to chime in as well, but at Indiana University East, is it primarily residential, or do you have a commuter base? What's your mix?
It's so about 4,500 students. IU East has got a big online program. Of all of the IU branches, 5 or 6, I'm not sure how many there are. IU East was the first one to kind of jump into the online portal. And cool fact, is it Venus? Venus Williams is an alum of IU East. We have an association with the USTA, with the Tennis Association, and a ton of tennis people are students. The gal that won, Shane interviewed her this fall, the gal that won the US Open just graduated. She was just on campus this fall, or this, I guess, end of this fall for graduation. Monica Puig, who's, I don't know, I'm not in the tennis world, but big time tennis player. So a lot of them are online. I would say about probably 2,500 of them are students that actually come to IU East. Now, of that group, I don't know if I'd say half. A chunk of them are commuters that are relatively local, whether it's, I would say, within half an hour. We don't actually have IU East affiliated dorms, but some smart business person came in and said, hey, there's a need here. And they built a big, huge apartment complex literally right next to campus. I can walk up out of my office and head over there and be walking in about 5 minutes. And so this year, particularly with us being a brand new program, we pushed all of our students there and said, hey, this is going to be a great transition to college, living here without, you don't have to have a car. Now a lot of our kids are going to move off campus and living in houses or other apartments, but I would say that maybe a quarter of the students that go to IU East live on campus or live in the apartments. They're in town. I don't have a player on my roster that's from less than half an hour away. I got California guys. I got a Brazilian that started in January. I got a kid from Australia. I mean, literally, we're recruiting worldwide, and not very many of them are from local. So, kind of like I think UC Clermont mentioned, hey, we find a way to make it work with the housing, and it's been going on that way since we've had athletics for about the last 10 years. It's then most of the athletes are not from local, and so we find a way to make it work.
Okay, Josh, why don't you weigh in terms of theater, residential, and then also the other topics that we just covered?
Well, it's a lot. So I'm very similar to Jim down there with Division III school. So the same kind of schedule and things that Jim was talking about applies to us. As far as the Mount, we're a local school, so we do have commuters. The school was actually built initially as a commuter school way back in the day when we first started. But now it's about half and half. So we have the 1,500 on campus kids in the school. We have about 700 on campus, and another 700 that live in the surrounding area that commute back and forth. So that's the residential housing thing. As far as other things go, I'm going to try not to backtrack too much because my memory is probably not going to handle it so well. But I think it's all been pretty much covered pretty well here. So I don't want to forget.
How's your off season, preseason, regular season commitment for the players?
I mean, it's kind of like similar here. It's about 20 hours a week is what I try to kind of gauge during the season, depending on travel and those kind of things. And then, Division III is you're talking about 3 months for the season, 20 hours a week, give or take a couple, 6 days a week. And then in our off season, we're kind of hands off until our spring. Our spring is about 6 weeks long. And it's we're not stuck to an hour limitation, but it really is probably about 8 to 10 hours in a week during those 6 weeks. The rest is very much, it's going to be led by if you have a strength conditioning staff or if you have, or your team leadership. So I think back to the grades and things, part of the reason and part of what I want is we like to have mature kids or kids that are successful and can kind of, are self-motivated and can drive themselves along, because we aren't able to kind of hold your hand and guide you through every little thing. So if we feel like we can't depend on you to do the right things and be a part of a team and sacrifice as a part of the team, then that's going to lead to questions about whether or not you're a good fit for us. Other schools have more capability to maybe handle that, but for me at Division III school, we really can't. So we have to depend on you to be good leaders and to be good students and to be good teammates. So
does your team have some unofficial training during the winter and in the spring, even doing lifting? I mean, where you're not really involved
you can work with strength conditioning staff that can be organized and set up through your staff. So that happens. And then the girls, the ladies, if they want to do stuff on their own, they're always able to do that. But it has to be led by them, and really no involvement on our end other than just making sure that it's safe and those things. So.
How much academic support do you give, or how involved are you in the academics of your team and your students?
So I think that every school is similar in some way. So and they go about this in some way. We wouldn't have an organized athletic study table, but our school offers tutoring and academic support to every student. So if you need help, there's a process of just going in there and requesting tutoring and getting it that way. So we wouldn't do an organized study table for the whole team unless that's something that we decide is needed for an individual basis. And that's just us. And then I think everybody would probably have their own way of tackling that problem, for them as an individual. So, but obviously Division III, I mean, the whole thing is academic. So if you're not coming to school and graduating and then staying for the 4 years and graduating, then we aren't really doing what we need to do on our end. So that's the main focus for us.
Yeah, I think the common theme, and I know everyone has touched on this, academics are important prior to college, but academics are equally important once they get there. And obviously that's what they're there for. Joel, if you wouldn't mind, Joel's just taken over the men's program at Cincinnati State, and there's a reason for that. It mattered with the university how things were going. And why don't you elaborate a little bit on how the girls program versus the guys program was doing academically?
So academics is extremely important at Cincinnati State. With the women's side, I can speak to that for last year, is we had 3 study tables at least a week that were at an hour and a half. Whether they're doing on homework or we brought people in to help guide them through what they're going to go through for the next 2 years and help set them up in their life. We had workshops and guest speakers that would come in as well. But I was also able to monitor where our team was and where our team GPA was. For the women's side, we finished at a 3.4, slightly above that for a team average. For their GPA, we had 7 all-conference academic awards. On the women's side, the men's had 2. Unfortunately, on the men's side, their GPA was much lower. They had, from what I was understanding, about 14 to 17 Fs in the fall season for their players. 4 that completely dropped out of the program altogether and no longer attending Cincinnati State. So for me, a big push is definitely the academic side. Is I want to make sure you are successful when soccer's over. I want to make sure you're successful when you're off the field. So that is a big push with me, is making sure your grades are where they need to be. And I'm hoping that the men's side, with that leadership and study tables being mandated and other things, that we're going to get back to where it was with the women's side last year and have at least a 3.4, 3.5 team average GPA, and continuing our all academic awards. And the women's side is on track for also what was the NSCA is now the USC's all team academic award.
How many of you, show of hands, look at showcase tournaments as a very important resource for you to find players and identify players? What about resources like Captain U and some of those online, I guess you could say all the players, when we go to these showcase tournaments, have to register and enter information in there. They're being constantly reminded, please do that. The coaches are getting constant reminders. Are those important resources for you all when you're going to a tournament, or are you basically relying on, as Jim said before, you get a lot of emails, and you're looking for the ones that are a little more customized and personalized, but how do those resources impact what you're doing at a tournament? Anyone that wants to?
For me, I definitely want to hear from the player more than I want to hear from a recruiting service. So I want to know, are you serious? Have you taken the time to look to see if our university or our college is a fit? Have you done 10 to 15 minutes seeing something about the college that piqued you? Have you done something about the coaching staff? Have you looked up something about the team? Have you seen what our programs are and where you want to be? So for me, it's more important that I hear directly from the person. I'd rather read 100 more emails that are actually written from players, because at the end of the day, the contract is between me and the player when they come in and commit. So I want to hear from them. A useful tool that I use is video. I won't make any final decisions on video. Highlight clips, maybe 2 to 3 minutes, but I enjoy the unedited version, especially if you email me and I can't get out there. When I'm traveling, it's a useful service that I can actually take and watch when I have 15, 20 minutes to see if you are potentially a good fit and if I want to continue and reach out to you.
Someone else?
I think with regards to like a captain U before a tournament, and I guess I would say I've pushed on both the men's and the women's side, so this is a difference that I've seen. When I would go out to a women's tournament, I think that we talked about the Ohio Elite and the big ones. If I'm at a women's tournament and I sit down, pretty much every game I get a profile book from each of the teams. And so I've got updated information, so I'm not reliant on the book that the tournament gives me. On the men's side, it's rare that I get a profile sheet. And I don't know if that's guys aren't interested in playing more so. I'm not sure the reason, but it makes me reliant on the book. It's frustrating, but it's incredibly common that I'll get a book with no information in it. It won't have a phone number. Geez, it's so much more. And I've talked with, hey, IU East is not the most difficult to get in of schools around. If I'm at a school like that, I know I've talked with coaches at schools like that, and they get a book and it doesn't have your GPA and it doesn't have your test score. Well, it's one thing if you haven't taken the test score to not have it in there, but if you have that information, the coaches need it. Because if I'm at a high-end academic school and I know that, hey, I need such and such a GPA or such and such a test score to get this kid in the door, I don't want to waste any time recruiting a kid that doesn't have that. So having the necessary information is incredibly important. With regards to the recruiting services, I worked at NCSA, which is, I probably have gotten emails, I know probably every single coach has gotten an email from NCSA at some point. Recruiting services have benefit. It depends on how much you use them. everything that a recruiting service can do for you, you can do yourself though. It's just how easy it is. One of the things that I thought was really nice is if you put in, hey, I want to go to school in these states and I'm looking for this division, and I'm looking for this quality of program from a record standpoint, you can put those search parameters in there and it'll kick you back a list of every single program. Most of us coaches, it sounds like most of us have been doing it a fair amount of time, and so we probably know a lot of the different schools that are around. So if you said, hey, what are the schools in Ohio? We could probably collectively come up with the entire list potentially. Y'all that maybe have a child this is your first go around with the recruiting process, you may not have a clue where to start to find out all that information. A recruiting service can make that easy, but you can do that research. Hey, the internet, geez, I'm gonna date myself here. I graduated high school in 1998. The only time I got on the internet before college was I went with my dad down to work to get on the internet, because that was the only place we had. Y'all have phones, y'all can get that information right now. So the resources are incredibly more available. It's just whether or not you want to do that work. So what you put in is what you get. But I'd also agree that, hey, if I'm getting an email, I'd rather get an email from the specific student rather than the recommendation from the recruiting company.
Kristin and Bob, I know you guys get a lot of contacts. Some people think they play Division I, and they may not be able to, but a lot of people are contacting you. How do those recruiting services factor into what you're doing at NKU or at Xavier?
Well, I think it's really well put. I think they can be very beneficial at times. I think you can do a lot of the work yourself, but again, I think sounding like Jim now, somewhat diplomatic, but I think there is value there. I think at the end of the day, you've got to find a way to get in front of the coach and get the coach to notice you in some way. Now, I'm going to date myself. I just received an email last week from a young lady that wanted to set up a visit, and she mentioned in there that her aunt played for me. Her aunt played for me in 1985. And I remember her aunt, she was a really hard worker, and again, that caught my attention. She's going to come over and visit, and she put that in her email. But again, I think the recruiting services, at the end of the day, it's trying to get in front of a coach, get the coach's attention, and have the coach come out and see you play. And however you're able to make that happen is, I think, how you have to do it. At least that's how I feel. You've got to get them out to be able to evaluate it. And again, to Jim's point, some tournaments, truly, we might get 150, 200, 250 emails, and we're a mid-major. I can't imagine what Xavier's getting, or some of the even larger schools. So again, we do get a ton of emails, and we've got to find a way. You've got to find a way to personalize it to get the coach to come out and see you play.
That's really helpful, Kristin.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add as well is, and everyone kind of alluded to it, you've got to figure out what works for your family, and in terms of how much money you're willing to pay or can pay. I mean, everyone pays a lot of money to play club soccer, and you've got to figure out what makes the most sense. So if you need to be a bit more creative, I've told many recruits that if you want to use a recruiting service, great, if that works for you, but I'll tell them just use your iPhone, have someone fill you in on the iPhone and send that, text that to me. That works for us. I think utilizing your resources that you have within your club, talk to your whoever you have at your club, whether it's your technical director, your head coach, assistant coaches, utilize your resources and have them reach out on your behalf as well and talk to them about their experience, because I'm sure they have some experiences in working with college coaches. So whatever works for you and your family. For me, same as everybody else, I'd rather get an email from that player. I say save your money.
Yeah, she mentioned working with the technical directors of your club, and I think that's probably the best way, one of the best ways, I don't want to put absolute on it either. It's one of the best ways to get in contact with local coaches. I think every one of us has had a conversation with Greg about a player, or Kurt at Cub, or Kevin Sproul at Cincinnati West. Like, we've all had those conversations or inquiries. I know I talk to Greg Petty quite often, just to see, what some players are up to. So that would be definitely a route that I would go, especially if you're looking to stay local. because we're all looking for a good fit for you. So working through the technical directors, sometimes we'll make a phone conversation and it's not a good fit, and maybe we can steer them in a different direction. Yeah.
I think Mike had a follow-up question.
Real quick, it's kind of on the same topic. How important is a highlight video useful or helpful when a recruit emails you in your evaluation to consider whether to look?
And how long are those clips? I was going to ask that same question. It makes sense.
So I think you'll have a couple different answers here. I would imagine the schools that recruit on a a larger scale might have a different answer. For me, a highlight video is, I think Shane said it earlier, is a tool that you can use as part of your recruiting strategy. So it's not crucial for me because we recruit local, so I'm going to see you play. So an email does the same thing for me that a highlight video would do, unless you're from out of town. Now, I think the Division I schools and the AI schools might have a little different answer on that. Only thing I would say is, and someone might have said this already, I apologize if I copy, is if you're going to do that, you just got to make sure you understand what's going to get looked at quickly by the coaches. So if you put a highlight video together, and number one, they should be really good highlights, right? They should be you at your best. So you want to make sure that it's you being awesome for little short, like maybe 10 to 15 second clips, and then and always trying to have some kind of idea so that we know who you're looking at. So I've gotten some videos before where the player I was watching wasn't actually super highlighted, so I was kind of guessing, and I don't have that long of attention span when it comes to that kind of thing anyway, so that kind of goes away pretty quick. So I just think you have to be aware of what you're going after and who you're talking, who you're putting yourself in front of, and remember that it's also it's kind of like a business interview or a job interview. So if you put on, I don't even know what's the most popular song right now. Like, what are y'all jamming to right now? No answers? Nobody's going to tell me because I'll listen to it later. So whatever the song is, if it's not appropriate for someone to hear, like if you think your parents or a coach might be like, what is this? Maybe you would want to edit that and not use that song. So there's just things that you need to make sure that that you're thinking about before you put together a video and before you take the time to do it and put the money into it, whatever it might be. So.
Well, the other thing I was going to say, Kristin, how long do you look at for a video clip?
Sure, so the snapshot is always good. We use highlight videos as a way for us to see if that conversation is worth continuing to pursue. A lot of what we get with highlight videos is as you said, the highlights of it. But we want to make sure that we're seeing different aspects of your game. Don't show us the same thing over and over again. All right, great, you can play this diagonal ball, fantastic. What else can you do? So showcasing you in different lights and different environments. We then use that as coaches. We're not just looking, we don't want to just see that in general, right? I can't just make a decision based on the best things that you've done. I want to go to a game and see you play after that and see things when you don't have the ball. Because let's be real. No one's putting in a highlight video runs that they're making off the ball on the weak side, right? That's not happening. Or certain tackles that they're getting stuck into. It's usually the same kind of highlights you see. So for us, it's a gateway into then making that decision of what we want to see. So for me, anything under. I have a bit longer attention span. I don't mind watching a long video of 10 minutes or so, but ideally probably it's 5 minutes or below. We can get a good grasp of that point if it's worth pursuing from there.
I try to tell my players that you probably want to see a little bit of the build-up to the play and not just receiving the ball, turning and shooting, because you don't know. And also I see some videos where the opponent is obviously not a very worthy opponent. And so what they're doing against that team may not really have any value to you. Do you see that sometimes?
Yeah, definitely. That's the hard part where you're trying to gauge the level of play. So someone might look like an absolute rock star in a game, and you realize that they're playing against some mannequins out there. So then again, you see some great things, and then that's just an opportunity to see them again in the future. But yeah, just showing, like you said, the build-up is great. Any goals or saves, anything like that. But we look for a lot of different things. Each coach is really different what they're looking for. So again, just a gateway for us to see more.
Now, if we could start down at Steve, I want to see, just if you guys can just give a quick answer on this. How many players do you expect to have in your program in the next year or 2 years?
We started this past, again, we're a little bit different because we're a brand new program, so we've got a ton of young guys for me. We started with 26 this past fall. We had 3 kids quit the very first week. You know, that's going to happen when you've got a lot of guys that are trying to figure out if college soccer's for them or not. Because of that, we're bumping it up, and we'll probably start with 32 this year. That's going to make for kind of a maybe not so great experience for a lot of them because, hey, in a given game, we're probably playing 17 or 18 players. You know, it's not rec league anymore. You know, hopefully that expectation isn't that, but hey, we won't. You know, come fall, we all want to win games. You know, we're not playing a player that we don't think is going to help us make that happen. So,
Josh?
So we will goal is 28 to 32, and we try to get anywhere between 7 and 9 players in a recruiting class. So
Typically, we go between 22 and 26. Hopefully, can convince the college to let me to build that a little bit larger.
Similar, we don't really have a necessary number. The way we play, the style we play, we need bodies. We're doing with some serious high intensity minutes. So, you know, probably looking around 30, 32 with 3 goalkeepers next in.
Yeah, there's no roster cutoff for us. So last year I only carried 19 due to a lot of injuries that we had. So this year, you know, I'm going to get up in the 20, 25 area, but I never stop recruiting the whole time. So I can add them all the way up until our season starts.
So we carried 25 last year, and we had our fair share of injuries as well. Just in the first week, we had a couple of ACLs, a concussion that ended one of the girls' careers. So I usually try to stick between 25 and 30.
24 and 26 is a good number for us.
I agree with that, though we had a lot of injuries this year, and so right now we're at 30 players, and I'm looking to add 2 more, but they've got to make sense to what we need for next year.
This past season in Hanover, we had 26 players. That was as small as we've been in a few years. Typically, we're like 28 to 32. I think the largest team we've had is 33.
So for most of you, you're probably traveling with 17, 18. Is that Jim?
I think you got to ask. That's a great point. I think with every coach you meet, you should not only ask the roster size, but find out what that means at that institution. Okay. So for us, we're one team. We don't have a JV team. Everybody trains together. Everybody dresses for home games, and we all get on the bus and travel to an away game. But I sense that that's not normal. I think
That's not what we hear from most schools.
Correct.
So I'm glad, that's why I wanted to hear what you guys say about that.
Yeah, and Jim's not flying places, nor are IU East right now. One of the things that, as I recruit, whether you're an All-American for us or whether you are a 4th-string goalkeeper, is I want to be able to treat people. I want them to get the same experience from a standpoint of my attention and from a standpoint of gear, from a standpoint of travel experience and all of that. And outside of injuries that might take away from folks' academic work, I want to try to keep my numbers to where we can travel with each and every player. Though some of them know, hey, I'm probably not getting in this game. But if they want to come and they're working hard, I think that's a big part of the college experience. Though I've been at other places where we're flying places and you're not flying 30 players the weekend.
I agree with these guys. I think it's important. The team chemistry, team camaraderie, if at all possible, if everybody can travel.
Yeah, we try to bring, you know, everybody that we can. You know, sometimes we have to apply value to some of our away trips. So, you know, we'll go up to Michigan and play on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And if we brought 18 players to play 3 90-minute games, we're foolish, you know. So I tell everybody to be ready to play. I typically don't promise anybody a minute of playing time. I just, I want to be as transparent as possible. So we'll carry 25 to most games. Not everybody plays every game, but they still have to be prepared to play.
We typically travel with everybody. I have allowed a few injured players. I allowed them to stay home just for comfort reasons. We schedule a lot of games with the men's and women's team, so we'll charter a big bus and travel together. But if it's within a couple hours, the men's team will travel in two 12-passenger vans, and so we get in as many as we can and make everybody good.
For us at Xavier, it's a fluid conversation with administration. We like to fight for our student athletes for the same reasons that everyone here said, to have that full experience. So they have a certain number in mind in administration, and we have a number in mind. So we constantly push and fight and scratch and claw to make sure that our student athletes get that experience. So it's always a work in progress for us.
Well, I think that I appreciate hearing that, because I know some programs, I don't feel like they do that. They're just like, hey, we're just taking 18, and we're not trying to even exceed that. And I think a lot of kids come in thinking they're going to play, and then even if they're not playing, they're going to be part of it. So I appreciate that you all, are cognizant of that, even at Division I level, where you got to fight that budgetary constraint.
Greg, those are questions that you ask on. I'm sorry, Bob. When you go in on recruiting visits, those things you need to write down and ask. How many travel? You do your work beforehand. How many freshmen are traveling? You ask the coach, how many freshmen are you bringing in? You look at the past 3 or 4 years, who's grad. All those things kind of tip you off to how the program is run. And quite frankly, not everybody is worried about the last student athlete. They're just worried about winning games and taking the kids that are going to do that. The rest are there to help the top 12, 14 get better.
And some conferences have travel party maximums, so it might be you're playing in a conference that you're only allowed to take X amount of players, and that varies from conference to conference. So some coaches' hands may be tied as well.
Yep.
Typically, we take the whole team. The only reason that I wouldn't take the players if they are struggling academically and haven't been doing what they need to do, so then they're not going to have the privilege of traveling. But we do what we can to keep our whole team together at any point in time, because you never know when you're going to need, whether it's the first person off the bench or the very last person. 3 years ago, we finished the regional finals game with only 9 able bodies able to play due to several injuries, going from a 19-person roster down to 11 and a half bodies.
So we would take everybody.
Stay with us.
This is more for the scholarship. I think Bob, Kristin, I think you guys, are you fully funded programs? Meaning, how many scholarships do you have to award and or divide up? And how do you do that, Bob? Can you hand that down to Michael down, Bob?
So we actually started in 1997 with one scholarship, and it's been a pretty amazing experience that we're now at 14, so we're fully funded at the Division I level. A big piece, though, truly, even for us, is we want to stretch our money as much as we can, as everybody here wants to do. And so I think on this year's team, every player except one also had academic money. And that's tied in basically with your GPA and to a large degree your test score. So again, we do try to recruit players who are high achievers academically, and our money stretches. Probably everyone else here does as well.
Yeah, Kristin.
Yeah, so similar, fully funded for us means 14 scholarships to cover tuition, room, board, books. But again, you want to stretch the money because you want depth in your team. So if we're giving out full scholarships and all of our money to a select few people, we're not necessarily creating the depth of a program that we'd like. So if we have an opportunity to spread that money around to give our student athletes more quality around them, then we want to do that. So saying, we're looking for quality students for various reasons, one of them being financial reasons. So the better you can do in school, the more money you get from the school, we can stack athletic money on top of that to make it affordable, potentially.
Is there at any point in time, I know the old rule was, if you were in the top 10% of against athletic money. Is there any situation like that now? Steve? No?
So for the NAIA for soccer, they tell us that we can have 12 full scholarships as far as the limit goes. That's not necessarily, it's definitely not going to be the case at every school. And I think that the NAIA is unique in this regard. When they say 12 scholarships, that's 12 scholarships where the money's coming specifically from the school. So if a full scholarship for us, I think is considered $20,000. If a kid's getting a $3,000 academic aid and they're getting $10,000 from me, that's $13,000 that comes out of that pool of 12 scholarships. So kind of. Now I guess the catch with that is that the NAIA also has academic incentives. That if you're an incoming freshman and you get a certain GPA, a certain test score, your money's waived. So that same kid that's getting 13 grand from us, none of it might count, depending on how good your scholarship is. Now that's still, hey, I may still have a limit in terms of what my school has told me I can spend, but it doesn't count towards that 12 limit. So kind of, but not really.
Okay. In terms of walk-ons, especially Bob and Kristin, how often? I mean, how many walk-ons typically do you have in your program? I know because you're probably splitting your scholarships up, right? Are there a lot of kids that are getting more than 50% scholarship in your program, or are they kind of divided up? I know, at North Carolina, Anson was one of the first people to say, I'm going to take 10 scholarships or 12 scholarships and split it into 20 half scholarships. What's the philosophy? I know it varies, but what do you have?
Yeah, so for us, it's really divided. There's not many that are above 50%. Again, because of the school Xavier is as well, we tend to attract quality students who get a lot of academic money as well, so we don't need to give them that much. I think, again, it goes back to that depth piece as well of kind of sharing the wealth and spreading it around. What was the other part of your question?
Well, just how do you have walk-ons and how do they impact the program?
It's rare for us this age to have walk-ons because we typically are aware of who may be interested, so we're able to see them. Now, having said that, the walk-ons that we may get are usually not in the fall or the preseason. It's usually this time of year where they reach out to us. They're already on campus and they've seen us play. They play club somewhere and they want to try out. So this is the time of year where usually for us you get one or two who want to try out for a day. We actually have one trying out this week just to see what they can do, and if it works out, fantastic. I mean, especially if they're already at school, you don't have to go through the whole process of that recruitment. They're already there, they're already enrolled. So I mean, for us, we're more than happy to take anybody who can benefit our program. It doesn't matter how we find you or you find us.
Bob, how's it impact your program at all? I mean, pretty much know everybody.
Yeah, we're actually very similar to Kristin. We generally don't have a ton of walk-ons. We do have occasionally somebody reach out. And then in terms of the scholarship, again, we try to stretch it and spread it out.
And the one thing you and I, because we've known each other for 105 years, but I know your philosophy is as players prove themselves through the first couple of years, don't you see it pretty common in programs that you're going to increase their money as they show their dedication and loyalty?
Yeah, so I learned from an old German guy named John Tobin, who was our men's coach when I was hired back in 1997, and John was very frugal. And so when I was hired, we literally had one scholarship. And so if you think about it, as I was thinking about how I would allocate one scholarship, I decided on 0.25 scholarship per class. So when I went to like a 0.30 equivalency in my first recruiting class, I panicked. So eventually what we did try to do is how to manage our money is when the seniors graduate, you're going to get that money back, and then as people matriculate through the program, you try to reward them. The NCAA rules are pretty clear. You can't make those kind of promises, but again, we do try to reward people as they move through the program.
Yeah, and I think for us in club, it helps that you have a pattern of doing that, and I'm aware of that, and you and I have talked about that for years, and I know that's important, Kristin. I know that establishes you all as a credible, it's a trend, and it's something that you kind of count on without a promise if you put it into dues.
And a point I'll bring up isn't always necessarily just soccer specific in terms of the value that you're bringing to the program. So coaches in general like to reward those who are doing really well in the classroom. I've been part of programs where scholarship has been increased, not necessarily because they've been great players, they've done well, but because they've really added to the whole culture of the team, maybe community service-wise, academic-wise. They've really helped change a culture, and I've been a part of programs where they get rewarded for that as well. So it pays to have that total package and just be a great teammate.
Well, the last thing I just wanted to, in general, when you're getting commitments, how do you guys look at a firm? Because I know you want to get your class filled, and are you counting on a lot of verbal commitments, or are you banking on those, or are you waiting for them to make, kind of put a deposit down or sign some official paperwork? What's your philosophy on that, real quick, if you just run it,
So for us, and again, this is just for me, we obviously get some verbal commitments, but in my mind it doesn't count until, I'm not 100% sure until you pay your deposit, which for us, Katie over here who's coming to us, I didn't find out about her for sure until just 2 weeks ago, I think, maybe 10 days. So I was still waiting, even though, I might have thought probably until she actually paid her deposit and made the commitment to me verbally and those things. So I think from our standpoint, it's the deposit, it's not just a verbal commitment. But of course, we're not doing anything super early before they can sign. So it's probably different for another place.
What about with the scholarships? Kristin, I know Katie, you and I were talking about it, and I was telling you, hey, Katie's very interested, and Josh was like, oh, great, you didn't even know for sure until we were talking. And so a lot of things happen late for you, right?
Oh, yeah, sorry. So Division 3 can be super late. I think Jim mentioned it before. We don't get really started until your junior year, spring of your junior year, and then really for us to get commitments in your junior year is a big deal. And like I said, we're really waiting until senior year, and we may have done all of our recruiting. We may not be looking for anybody else. We might be just waiting for answers. But we're still waiting all the way up for Division 3 anyway. We're waiting until this time of year, even farther down the road. So.
Bob and Kristin, how do you work the commitments? Because I know you probably get some money. You're probably giving some money to some of these incoming freshmen. So, are you waiting until? Are you counting on verbal commitments, or how do you do that?
Yeah.
How far out are you doing that?
We try to slow it down, again, but, I think for us, probably the earliest was, I remember it was Memorial Day of our sophomore year was a pretty big commitment that we got. It was probably the earliest time. But, we do take verbal commitments seriously, and, I know that all coaches tend to honor those, and, if you are at the point where you're ready to make a verbal commitment, although it's not binding, it is considered pretty serious. And it goes to, have you done your research and have you made the correct decision when you're ready to make that commitment? But I think all coaches do take those verbal commitments very seriously.
So at IUE, we can sign. We don't have to wait till the first Wednesday in February. I've signed players throughout the year. I will not have anybody sign a letter of intent or a contract prior to their senior year. I want to make sure that it's right for them and it's right for us. And I expect once that is signed and we have an agreement that we're both on the same page and that we're both going to honor our commitment to one another. So but we can jump ahead of D1s if we really wanted to, and I think there are certain programs that are out there doing that, trying to get ahead of some of these folks, but we try not to do that and make it a good fit.
Yeah, I think when it really counts for me anyways, is when there's full transparency out there, when the players have gone out and visited other colleges and have decided that they've picked us, they chose us. That doesn't happen as a sophomore at the University of Cincinnati, Clermont. I mean, that's just not the reality. I do have a handful of girls that I talk to as sophomores that, are on board. But the majority of the time, it's your senior year. It's after you've gone on, the visits to other colleges, or some of the other dream colleges that you have aren't calling you back, or it doesn't work out financially. And when that transparency comes out and says, hey, I've narrowed it down, I'm not going to such and such college the coming year, that's when it really counts for us. And then obviously, we try to stick towards that signing day period in February. It's because we want to be on track with everybody else. So.
The only part I'll add too is, just because we had this conversation today with the recruit, is don't be afraid to ask coaches, because we live in a world of verbal commitments at our school, because everything happens so young. So it's important to know what happens if you get injured. If you're committed and you say, the coach says this is what you're going to get, what happens if I get injured? What happens if you can't play? If you still want to go to that school, will they still honor your scholarship? It's really important questions to ask. It's okay to ask those questions. What happens? What are the situations where my scholarship, this verbal commitment, it won't be followed through? What happens if the coach leaves or if the coach gets fired? Those are really hard questions to ask, and the coaches may not have the answers to them, but it's okay to ask them. It's a big commitment you're making as a family, as a student athlete. So be willing to do that.
Yeah, and I think specifically to your school, but prior to your staff, current staff, I think that happened. There were a lot of verbal commitments to Xavier, and then when the staff was dismissed, the school voided all the verbal agreements, which I can understand the new staff didn't want to be saddled with all those. Is that pretty typical?
I think it depends on the school. A lot of that comes from administration and what they want you to do. I think it's always a lot easier to kind of just say it how it blankly happens. There's a lot of pieces of the puzzle, but I think it really depends on the institution and coaching staff. It's hard to say.
Anything else that you all think? I think it's been very helpful that some of you are pointing out some of the things that the players need to think about and ask questions. And I think that the universal theme here is academics prior to school, prior to college, and while they're in college are very important and are going to be tied directly to financial aid. And also, I think Blaine made this point, I know other people did, performance on the field is correlated to that as well. And then, it sounds like the other thing that they need to do is they need to ask some really pointed questions. I think Shane, preparation prior to, you should look at it as a two-way interview, right? I mean, and I think that you respect players that come in and ask difficult questions or pointed questions, because that probably means, hey, this kid's really thinking seriously about my school.
And the flip side is, if you come meet with me and you don't have any questions, I take that like as a lack of interest a lot of times.
Anybody else on that point? Yeah.
So just two things, and I'll try to be brief. So number one, I think it's important that you have an understanding exactly of we go to a lot of these things and it's all about the kids and parents. I think you're probably the ones that are a lot of times that are kind of most concerned about, are we on the right timetable? Are we on the right calendar? Are we moving things along? And what is my role? What should I do as a parent? And I heard this from somebody else, so I'm not going to take credit for it. Players, you should be driving this, but you have to make sure that you give your parents the feedback and you communicate to them what's going on. I think it allows your parents to kind of stay in their lane, but it lets them know that things are moving forward in a good direction, and it allows them to kind of relax and feel good about the investment they've made in you, the time they've spent, the money they've spent in you, and being willing to kind of communicate to them about how things are going, how many coaches are you talking to, what are you interested in, is really important. I think that's a fair trade-off for you to be willing to communicate back to your parents. So I just wanted to kind of drop that off for the players to think about as we go through this. All right. And then the last thing is, we always talk about who do we talk to and where do we start. And I think at a club like this, a larger club, obviously you have your DOCs, you have your coaches, all those kind of things. But what you also have is you have the players that are the age ahead of you, or the 2 ages ahead of you, to ask about their recruiting processes. So I'm not going to ask anybody because no one responded to my question about music, but I would be curious how many of you asked that 2 ages ahead of you, like what was your process like? What did you find out about schools? Why did you choose this? It may happen, but my sense is that it doesn't happen very often. And those are the people that have just gone through it or that are in the middle of it. So as you're prepping for it, I would think they'd be a very good resource. So,
Josh, if we can hand that microphone down, I think to close out the panel, Jim just wanted to make a quick point here, and then we'll close out the coaches panel, and then we've got a gentleman from a recruiting service that's going to give us a few minutes of background as well.
I just have a couple things. When I get a chance to speak on these panels, I always try to make these last 2 points. For the players in the room, whether you're a high school junior or high school freshman, I think you should know you're always being evaluated, okay? You're always being evaluated. I can tell you who's been paying attention in the room tonight and who's just here because their dad made them come, okay? You're always being evaluated. When you go to ID camp, are you the kid that's like starting the food fight in the cafeteria? Or are you the kid that's helping the players and coaches pick up the balls at the end of the training session? I would urge you to represent yourself the right way on social media. You may think your Instagram is private, but I'm here to tell you, there are ways to see what you're putting on social media. And at my little old D3, there are kids each and every year that've lost opportunities with this just because they're like, not great kids, and we don't want them to represent our program, okay? Or maybe they're a great kid who like, don't do the right thing sometimes, okay? So just think about that. Know like, when you're at a club game, and Jim Calder pulls you off, do you come off and cheer for your teammates, or do you come off and kick your water bottle and scream at your mom, right? Coaches are gonna notice these things. And then the last thing, Josh just mentioned it, I'm gonna speak for the whole group, I think, but one, I'd like to thank the club for having us all, and I cannot tell you how lucky you are to have the coaches and administrators you have in this club. I've been a college coach for 21 years now, and I'm absolutely blown away at the man hours and the lengths the coaches in this club put in to help the players find the right fit for them. And that's not normal, and I just want the parents and the kids in the room to know that.
We certainly appreciate all of you, and like I said to Bob, I think and Jim had some of my players play for him when he was at Earlham, and the only thing that was negative, that I ever got negative feedback from, was that Jim left before my career was over with at Earlham. So, those are all great compliments, and all of you, cannot thank you enough for coming out and giving us the time that you've given us tonight, and some of the insight that you've shared with the players. Hopefully, parents and players, you've listened to some of these really specific details that will matter in the recruiting process. It's very, very important. I would even add to what Jim said, I've seen coaches evaluate the warm-up and what you're doing in the warm-up. Hey, Greg, did you notice that goalkeeper, 5-minute warm-up? Didn't do anything. Stood around, bounced the ball, didn't do anything, didn't get themselves ready to go. Or did you see that player? Went to the bathroom, was gone for 15 minutes of the warm-up with 3 other girls, they're chit-chatting, and they're not even getting ready to play. And what he just said, and I know all of you say the same thing, that's not the kind of player that they're looking for that's going to play in college. There are too many years where I've seen somebody goes, that player was an absolute soccer gift. Why are they not playing in college? And this player wasn't that good, but they're playing in college. And I think we would all say, it's not always talent that makes a college soccer player. It's commitment, it's work, it's dedication. And that really starts, I think you guys just said, you need to drive the process. And that starts now in terms of whether you want to play college soccer or not. And the coaches are going to pay attention to that. And this has been great feedback for all the players. And I personally and professionally appreciate everything that you all have done tonight and continue to do for all of our kids. So thank you very much. And we're going to let the coaches get on out of here. I know some of you guys have some time. I'd like to, can, get you some dinner down the street there. If you don't have time, we totally understand. I know Mr. Petty's going to help you guys on your way out, and you know, I'm sure you'll be hearing from some of our players, and certainly appreciate everything. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to have a little transition here real quickly into having a little discussion from a gentleman named John Beard. John works with ECP Sports College Soccer, and he's very involved in helping players and students find a good college fit. It's not just about recruiting. Okay, John?
Thank you, Greg. If anybody needs to bail, go ahead, because that's better than when I'm talking. Okay? But if you want to stay, that's great. I'll be brief, because I know that you've had a lot of great information here tonight. I appreciate being asked in to speak with you a little bit about college and soccer is how I always talk about it. It's not college recruiting per se. Yes, you have to be recruited by a college coach, and that's very important. But there's a lot to understand about being successful and having a great experience if you're going to play a sport like soccer in college. This is what I do full time, is work with athletes and families in our area to be successful at having that experience with soccer in college. I do this for my career now, but it's also something I've lived as a parent. I had a daughter that came through everything that you all are going through right now, played club ball for many years, was fortunate to play soccer at Ohio University, graduated on time, got a job in her career. Life's good. When she looks back, she had a great experience playing soccer and a great experience with her college. It's not all, you know, like rosy every day, but when she looks back, it was like, wow, that was really cool. So that is the kind of experience that we want for everybody. And the folks that I work with, that's kind of what guides what I do. So if anybody's interested to know more, I have business cards. I work with folks here in the room already that you might know. Real easy to get a hold of, social media and things like that. So that's fine, that's the sales pitch, okay? What I want to do now though is talk to you a little bit of straight talk about playing soccer and doing that in college and how to be successful, okay, at your age. So these college coaches are wonderful. You know many of them, a couple of them even participated in recruiting my daughter several years ago. They're talking to you from their perspective. They're trying to help you, but they're talking to you from their perspective, okay? So what I want to address a little bit is from your perspective, family's perspective, some of the things that you want to do to be successful. So I use that word a lot. There's three big things about being successful if you're going to play a sport. Soccer is what we're here to talk about in college. One is you need to be able to play, okay? That's very important. The coaches made a great point about how many they all roster, okay? So 26 to 32, 3 or 4 goalkeepers. So if you're a goalkeeper, really pay attention, because one plays and the other ones are kind of support, okay? And in case somebody gets hurt. So the only reason we talk about that is, who wants to be real smart and tell me how many play at a time? Soccer. Riley? 11, okay. So if they're rostering 30, there's a million reasons why they do that. So we don't need to worry about why they're doing that, okay? But that's the fact. We don't change that, okay? So the point, wait a minute, kicking the soccer ball up here. The point is that you want to play, all right? No competitive athlete is not happy if they're not playing, or at least I haven't met one yet, okay? So you just need to understand that you want to play at the highest level you can when you go to college, but you want to play. That's really important, okay? Because whether you're traveling or not, and every school has a different policy about that. On the road games is what they're talking about, you know, when they're talking about traveling. You want to be there, but you also want to be on the field, okay? The second big part of being successful is the academic part. So they stress that a lot from the standpoint of being in college and how important that is, and it really is, okay? So there might be somebody in this room that's going to play professional soccer when they get done in college, but most of you won't, right? And that's just fine. You want to have a great experience with your soccer. There's many, many benefits to playing that sport in college, but you want to make sure your academics go well. So that could mean things like, are you going to get done with your college on time? Are you going to get done in 4 years? Do they have the major that you want? Can you switch your major if you need to halfway through? And can you finish and play a sport at the same time that you're taking high-level college academic courses, okay? And then the third part is all about the money. So these coaches were great, kind of talking about different ways that they award money. They all do it in different ways. But as a family and as a young person that wants to be on the field playing soccer, the investment that you get from the college and the coach participating in that is very important, okay? So we understand that. Everybody likes money, but the colleges aren't there just to hand out money to everybody, okay? So you want to make sure that those three things go well for you. The other thing about when we talk about college and playing soccer, the timing, okay? Everybody wants to talk about timing. When should I get started? I was a little surprised to hear Kristin actually mention 8th grade. I know coaches will look at athletes in 8th grade, or maybe even younger, I don't know. But I've never heard one say that on a college panel before. But that just gives you a little bit of the reality, especially on the women's side. Now, if they pass the legislation that NKU coach was talking about, that's great. But they're still looking, okay? They're still trying to identify players that they want in their program when they're going to be graduates of high school. The men tend to go a little later just because physically you're maturing a little later and things like that. But the fact is, once you're in high school in the 9th grade, you're a prospective student athlete is what it's called by the NCAA, which means it's like game on, okay? So every coach has different rules, the D1s, right? You're all somewhat familiar with that in terms of contact. But the reality is they're identifying players, okay? So when you're in the 9th grade, you don't have to be panicking and rushing around doing all these things about, quote, recruiting. But the way I like to put it is you need to be starting to develop your good habits right now. So whether you're 9th grade or 10th grade or 11th grade and you haven't started your good habits yet, you need to start your good habits, okay? So that means the things that you're going to be doing in college, right? The expectations that you're going to have in college. So the sooner you start kind of living that way, the better off that you're going to be. One of those things is, of course, follow your training. So you've got great coaches here in the club and DOCs that are spending their time. They're doing this because they love to coach, all right? So let them coach you, ask questions, come early, stay late. Everybody in college coach is looking for also who's doing a little bit extra, okay? Well, I train 3 days a week, holy cow, what else can I do? Well, every kid that's playing in practically every college in the country right now is probably training 3 days a week. So if you want to stand out, it just means you got to do a little bit more, okay? So work hard on that. Strength is a big part of that. I talk about this with guys and girls equally. Strength doesn't always mean lifting weights, but lots of times it does. And every one of these coaches, I think, the second thing they talked about after playing soccer is what they're doing in a weight room, okay? So I don't know if anybody loves lifting weights. I mean, there's probably somebody here that loves lifting weights, but it's part of being a big-time soccer player, okay? It's a beautiful game and everybody's fast and technical and touch and everything else, but I guarantee you every college coach wants to know who can body up with that other player, who's not going to get hurt, okay? So you have to be strong, and the sooner you start that, the better. The same is also with nutrition, okay? So college coaches are going to expect you to be eating certain things, drinking certain things, to be a successful high-level athlete. So the sooner you start doing that and realizing what those things are, the better off you'll be. There's a lot of science in sports now. So all these teams, these coaches probably, their players are wearing heart monitors in training, and they have all these expectations because they don't want these high-level athletes to let them down, right? You have to have your fitness, you're playing overtime. I don't know how many overtime games I sat and watched when my daughter was playing, but it's like every soccer game is overtime in college. So you gotta have your fitness, you gotta have your nutrition.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
One thing I think we want to get to is what can you know, how do you help student athletes, and how do you help students to get into college? So I want to make sure that you know that you can provide.
Well, that's fine. Well, I appreciate that. Greg said, let you all know what I do, so that way, in case somebody wants that help. So let me do that, okay, quickly. So I work with families and athletes that want to play soccer in college. I'm basically like a full-time mentor, coach, I think Mike said I'm like the personal trainer of college soccer, college recruiting, college soccer. So I work with families from the first step to the last step to make sure that you have a successful experience. So that would be things like how you interact with the college coaches. They talked about they want to read emails, right? They don't want to just find out something on a website. So that doesn't mean you can't have the website, and that's great, but they want to hear from you. All right, great. So what do you say? How do you say it? What are the things that you want to communicate? College coaches want to know a lot of things other than just, as they said, your position and your number, and hey coach, come see me play. That's great, they need to know that, but they need to know what makes you different and what makes you stand out from other players. So everybody I work with, they have a story to tell, okay? We dig, we talk, get to know you, find out the things that the college coaches want to know about you, and that's what we communicate. I also work with you one-on-one to talk to college coaches, like on a telephone. When you're going on college recruiting visits, what to expect, kinds of questions to ask, and things to talk about, and things you want to learn about the colleges. We work on the academic part. What do you want to be when you grow up? Okay, it's going to be here real quick. Whether you're a freshman or senior, that's going to go by in a blink. So what are the kinds of schools that you want to be looking at for your successful career? And then the last part is I help families with understanding the money and the financials and the actual process at the end, which can mean a lot of different things. A D1 scholarship, when a coach says 50% or whatever, that you were hearing that kind of lingo up here, that's a lot different than negotiating with a college, which is most of like the Division III schools, the private schools, where you're not getting an athletic scholarship. It's a whole different animal. Okay, so I would just say it's a little more complicated. So we work with families on all those things to make sure that you're successful at the end of the process. And the best part is that you find the fit for yourself, like we said, where you're going to play and get a good academic experience and have a good financial experience for your family. Okay, good.
Well, John, thank you very much. And the last question is, typically when do you start helping students? Freshman, high school year, sophomore, junior, what would?
Well, a lot of times with girls, it's freshman year, like I said, it gets very serious, depending on what your aspirations are. Guys, maybe a little bit later. I have a lot of freshman guys that I help, but probably sophomore year is a good time to really get serious about it. The way I put it though is the longer we work together, of course there's a cost to what I do, but the longer you work with me, the cost isn't any different. So from that standpoint, sooner the better that you just know that you're on the right track, that's all.
Okay, thank you, John. And to close out what John was talking about, when you're dealing with Division III schools, you should not just take whatever they offer you and walk away and say, that's what I'm gonna get from this school. Because I can tell you over the last 2 years, and throughout my career, but over the last 2 years, we've had kids that got an offer from one school, got an offer from another school that exceeded the other one, and then went back to first school and said, look, I really like your school, but this school's giving me this much money, and you know, I really would like to go to yours, but it's a financial decision. You should not be afraid to do that. Matter of fact, I would encourage you to do that. The worst thing that they can say is, we don't have any more money for you. But what I find is if the coach and the admissions department really want you, they're going to make it happen. And in some cases, because they're in the Ohio system, and maybe they're both in the Ohio system, they are allowed to do more because someone else offered you more. So, and then I know that, for example, one of our players just recently went in to try to qualify for some special scholarship money that was suggested to her to come in on a day, take a test, write an essay, and there were other scholarships that she might qualify for, which then allowed her to get some more money in her package. So, you know, even though they're not offering scholarships, there are a lot of ways that you can enhance the package or ask them to add to the package that you've been offered. So you should not just take the first one. If it's a school you're really interested in, you should negotiate a bit Not over the top, but you should definitely ask the questions like the coaches said, and you should also not accept that money. Hey, look, if you need more money to go to that school, you tell them. You know, if, like I said, if they really want you, they'll make it happen. Okay? So, Mike, if you want to just close things out here.
Hey, real quick, because I know you all are excited to be here still. So, on our website, alliancecincinnati.com, there's a wealth of information on college recruiting. There's sample letters to college coaches. There's other videos. There's other things. Use it. Also, your coaches and directors are very sincere in their desire to help you. Use them as a resource, even if it's just to help with your letter. I don't care. If there's a school you're interested in, talk to your coach and the director. Let them contact the coach because you can't right now. Okay? With that said, thank you everybody for coming.